So I have a new favourite book of the year. Perfume has been surpassed. This one, it is my fourth five-star read of the year. I'm obsessed with it. It is Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. Middlesex. Am I allowed to say that? Is TikTok going to get upset if I say Middlesex? Let's say it some more. Middlesex. It's just a place, much like Middlemarch, but of course with added sex. Seriously though, why are none of you talking about this? If it weren't for HarperCollins' Modern Classics series, I wouldn't even know this existed. And that's crazy because I'm obsessed with this. It floored me. I mean, maybe I just need to go through Pulitzer Prize winning books because it reminded me so much of how I felt reading The Goldfinch in the best way. It's just such earnest, like artistic, beautiful storytelling. And it has it all, you know, like, oh, you want a three-generational tale of immigration from Greece into Midwestern 20th century America, like with very real historical events taken from the history of Detroit that were clearly semi-autobiographical from what Jeffrey Eugenides had grown up in. Like, yes. And then add on top of that this very complex tale about gender dysphoria and self-discovery. Our main character, Cal Stephanides, is intersex. They were born with both male and female genitalia, and so it goes unnoticed until their teenage years, and the whole time he has got this like abnegation and this confusion about who he is and who he's supposed to be. And it's so beautifully rendered, it's heart-wrenching, but I mean, really, the central pillar of this is the writing style. His writing, I could listen to this man write the phone book, you know, like that didn't make complete sense, especially because phone books aren't a thing anymore. But you know what I mean? Like, if the book, it's one of those where it's quite a long book, but it has so many nonsense tangents that don't really go anywhere. But you don't care because the payoff is so sweet and the writing is so brilliant. Like, what a talent. I'm so excited to read his other books. I am remiss to discover that he only has three novels, much like Donna Tartt. There are more parallels. It's fitting as well that this would usurp Perfume by Patrick Suskind as my favourite read of 2024 because they have parallels as well. Like, they're both stories about like a coming of age tale of someone who is like a mold breaker. They have this thing that they were born with that they can't control. But this as well, I think what makes it trump Perfume is it's so clever in the way that it's essentially a Greek retelling. Like, it takes the classic Greek tragedy, the rule of hubris, it takes stories from people like Sophocles and Euripides, and you see over three generations how the descendants are affected by the choices of the grandparents. You know, the brother and sister have children together, hoping that consanguinity won't affect the gene pool. But then, of course, later down the line, this recessive gene on the fifth chromosome, we see the impact that it has. And it was so poignant. I mean, incest is quite a difficult thing to rationalise for a reader because your everyday reader is not going to be like, oh, brother and sister having children, that seems wholesome. So that really speaks volumes to his artistic ability, like the way that he has the emotional intelligence to just make you say like, well, you know what? It's not right, but they love each other and they couldn't help falling in love with each other. So, sure, I would say for the first 400 pages, I really liked it and I thought, okay, this is going to be 5 stars. And then in like the last 100 pages, like I'd say the last fifth, it really transcended for me and became something else. And I thought, whoa, okay. Like, it peaked right when it needed to. Like, because there are certain books that are amazing but fumble the landing. Like, Stephen King is infamous for it, and I don't really hold it against writers because it is a horrific balancing act to pace everything properly and have like a satisfying ending. This has an amazing ending. Like, the way that it wraps in how society has mistreated intersex, transgender, non-binary, gender fluid people It's so intelligent, like the horrifically paternalistic doctor who's so old-fashioned. You see the circus show as well that Cal runs away to in California. Like the way that people who are intersex in America and other parts of the Western world, they're treated like a novelty, and there's this horrible stigma. Whereas in other cultures, which the book also points to, you know, places like Papua New Guinea, places like Dominican Republic, they are a respected part of the community and are uplifted for this unique thing that they have been born with. It blew me away how this story manages to tell you so much about American 20th century history. Like it makes total sense to me how this won the Pulitzer Prize, because it is like a all-American, great American novel. But there's so many throwaway side plots that are told with so much attention to detail, so much artistic sensitivity, that you have to just take a moment. Like there were chapters where I would just sit there and pause and think about it and be like, whoa, that was beautiful. Like the way he describes the grandfather losing his sense of self through dementia, like it's about halfway through the book. It has no overall bearing on the final plot, but it affected me. I read it and was like, my goodness, this whole storyline right here could be its own book. Like, imagine being that talented. Fact as well that the brother was called Chapter 11, a reference to the fact that in the future he bankrupts their father's business. Like, that's an instance of a sort of like nickname or character name that is quirky and referential and funny. You know, looking at you, lessons in chemistry, sometimes we don't need weird wacky names just for the sake of, like, come on, this knew what it was doing, and I appreciated it. I think it might be one of the most intelligent stories that I've ever read, but still in a way that is very approachable. Like, I wouldn't call it a pretentious novel. The storytelling is so earnest. It's just the subject material is something that I've never really thought about before, and so it was really inspirational and engaging, and hell yeah, like I can't think of another novel that's like this. There's so much discourse about sex versus gender and the difference and how quickly it becomes established what gender society expects you to pertain to based on your sex. And all of that just felt so ahead of its time. I mean, this book is the same age as me. Like, to think that this was written over 2 decades ago and it still just feels so forward-thinking, so fresh. And I love it. Like, oh, yes, I love this. So, in summary, Middlesex is my new favourite book. I think you should all read it. And yeah, you're welcome. It's so amazing. I mean, I'm sure a bunch of you have probably already read it, because, like, how could you not? Like, what are his other books like? Because I've heard a lot of talk about the Virgin Suicides. I've also heard that it's written in a very different style to this one, so I hope I would still like the Virgin Suicides. But then there's the Marriage Plot as well. HarperCollins, can you print that in the modern classic format, because that doesn't have one yet, and I need it. I need it. Actually, you know what? I'm not dumb. You know what I just love as well? More than anything, I love when a book perfectly anticipates how I want it to end, and it gives me exactly what I asked for. And I feel like I'm Nostradamus, because I telepathically predicted exactly what this book that was written 20 plus years ago was going to do. And it was perfect. So what I thought was going to happen was that Cal was going to go up to the dying grandmother, and she was going to, reveal the origin of Cal's intersex status and how the consanguinity had led to that genetic defect. And the second it happened, I said, yes, perfect. Cal now has that closure. He now knows that his life as an intersex person is not because of anything that he did. It's perfectly valid, and it happened because of the love that has transpired across multiple generations of the Stephanides family. Like, yes, what a perfect way for it to end. The perfect closure to his gender dysphoria. Like, yes. Anyways, tirade over. I love this book. Please read it. Signing out.